Hey, what's going on guys? I'm Season 4 here. Today I am back for another V deck profile with my favorite Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion. Now, the last time we did a Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion deck profile, it was about about a year plus ago, and I just covered the support from the last V selection, but a lot has changed. We've been through three waves of VCall now, many different ban lists, and just so many things have changed, but yet we are still suicidal. But Kidani has changed this for us by giving us Dragonic Kaiser Crimson. And Crimson is actually a big deal for many reasons. Crimson is in lore a long lost friend and cousin of Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, who in the original lore is very saddened at Vermilion's passing / suicide and wants to find all shapes and means to recreate the good old fashioned values on which he used to rely. Good news, in V series he has actually succeeded in this timeline and is able to prevent Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion from not only falling but from killing himself. And it's a very happy ending. It's very nice. It shows you that self-harm therapy works. But today, what about the deck in V? Now, there's a lot of good things being told about this deck, but a lot of questionable things being said about this deck, which is why I've been taking a very long time to make this video, because I had to test this a lot to make sure that what I was going to put out made sense. I didn't want to put out a video where people were like, hey, are you sure? I want to make sure that this is as objectively clear as I could possibly be, because if I don't do justice for my Kaisers, chances are nobody else on this planet will. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be a bit of a long one, but I'm going to try my best to summarize it. The deck is, while very straightforward and honestly very idiot proof, it has a lot of intricacies where the slightest options you make will make or break your deck. So yeah, do check it out. This is of course not the only way to build Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, Dragonic Kaiser Crimson, or the Kaisers in general. You can actually play and build the Kaisers in different ways, which I've seen around on the internet. So you don't have to take mine as the be-all and all. It's just something that I really do need to get out of the way, because there's a lot. So I wanted to mention the lore, I wanted to mention the premise, because these are stuff that generally is important to me. Kaisers is a deck that I truly do love, and it would be a complete shitty waste to just not mention it. I am going to start off with our grade 3s. Obviously, we play 4 copies of Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, the main star of the show. We play 4 copies of Dragonic Kaiser Crimson. Come on, will you really spot right in? And of course, 4 copies of Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, the Blood. And not to mention, last but very not least, we are also playing 4 Heal Guards, which have been reprinted recently. I'm still using my original prints for my Kaisers. That's how much they mean to me. So honestly, you shouldn't have much of an excuse to not be able to pick it up. But I mean, if you still can't, you can do without it. It's not the end of the world. So let's break it down. I want to cover first Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion. Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion has a skill you will never use in your life, and if you use it, you've lost. On the Vanguard Circle, once per turn, Counterblast 2, he gains 5,000 power and extra crit. If your opponent has 2 or more front or rear guards, he swaps the crit for the ability to attack all units in the front row. Complete ass card, 0 out of 10, does nothing, is brick, is vanilla, but he's my boy. He's my boy. I came back to V series for this. But beyond that, you really just never use his skill. He's really just meant for the thematic upgrade into Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion. The Blood. Leon, you're gonna die. So what does the Blood actually do? The Blood has 2 skills, 2.5 technically. Counterblast 1, move a card from your hand to the soul once per turn. This unit gains 5,000 power and the ability to attack all units in your opponent's front row, and extra drive. If the card you moved into your soul was specifically Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion, has to be this guy, he gains an additional 10,000 power and extra crit. So you never minus, because you get a drive back, which is pretty good, and you get 10,000 power extra crit so long as it's hit. It's a huge condition because you need to make sure that you actually have Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion in the hand. But you have searches. It's not the end of the world. It's just not that easy either. The second skill is where the whole self-help comes in. Soul Blast the Kaiser, grade 3, and this unit gains an additional drive check. At the end of the turn, he takes a damage for every time you did this action. So there's ways you can play the Blood's second skill. The more conservative and incorrect way is to just Soul Blast one at a time and just gain one drive at a time, and then after that just slowly just try snowball advantage from there, which in my opinion doesn't work, but I mean some people prefer it that way. To me, it is to just push the brink of death. If you're already going to die, you might as well hyper die. If you're going to kill someone, you might as well kill more people. So for the Blood, the strategy that traditionally you're supposed to be doing is just remove all Kaiser from his soul at one go, strike him down, and if he doesn't fall, you fall. So it's very thematic. Not only that, it's also very fitting for the lore of Dragonic Kaiser Crimson, the Blood, and it's also a very weird and irritating skill for most pilots, which is why you traditionally just play Vanquisher or Vowing Sword or the Great Dungaree. You know, you don't really come to this, but since we are talking about this, this is what we are doing. And at this point, you may be very entitled to say, hey, I don't watch this video anymore. I'm very sick. I'm very tired. I want to, you know, die, but not like in the Vermilion way, because this is killing yourself isn't fun. I know. Kidani thought the same thing, which is why he printed Dragonic Kaiser Crimson. Dragonic Kaiser Crimson is a tournament PR for the Japanese format. For the English format, I have no idea what it's going to be. They're recording this video. There's no news on him. When he comes out, please buy him. I beg you. He has, I kid you not, 2.5 skills again. In the drop zone, when your Kaiser, Grade 3 or greater Vanguard, is attacking or being attacked, you counterblast 1, you can either A, call him from the drop zone, or B, choose the Kaiser Vanguard and he gains 10,000 power. Now, that sounds like a lot of text, but I want to break it down for you. Basically, it works in 2 ways. 1, you counterblast 1 and superior call Dragonic Kaiser Crimson from the drop zone when, you know, your Kaiser is attacking or was attacked. Okay, that's fine, you know. Considering with the fact that traditionally, if you've seen my previous Kaiser deck profile, or just know what this deck does post V selection, you know we actually gain a lot of Excel markers, which do nothing, by the way, but now you actually can put them to somewhat of a better use. It helps. But what is that plus 10k? Yes, the plus 10k triggers if, for example, the Blood is attacking and you would like to give him an extra 10,000 power to hop over a very irritating defensive, or you just want to make sure that you are guaranteed to put your hand out, grab your opponent's neck, and crush it. Yes, that's what Crimson is for. But Crimson also ensures that it works the other way around. When your Kaiser Vanguard is currently at a weaker spot in time, if your opponent's attacking him, you just pay 1 counter blast. Crimson gains an additional 10,000 power. It counts like a shield. Just take it like a 10,000 point shield for the battle. It is for the battle, not for the turn, so you don't just plus 10k and then just sit back and laugh. It's only for that time. So every time you like to use Crimson's effect, it is a counter blast 1. Do keep in mind though, it's not once per turn. So you can actually repeatedly use 1 Crimson in the drop for his counter blast 1 10k shield skill, multiple attacks per turn equal to the number of counter blasts you have available. I have to stress that because it's going to fly over many people's head, and frankly, once you understand what Crimson does, the deck is the same thing. So yeah, you really need to read in between the lines. Take this as your literature test if you have to be, because yeah, you will be tested in terms of your IQ when it comes to this card, and the payoff is dependent on the pilot. Its second skill is, and here's the self-help therapy, when at the end of the turn, when a card is going to be placed from your trigger zone into your damage zone, Soul Blast 1, you retire Dragonic Kaiser Crimson, move the card from the trigger zone into the drop zone. Now, this means 2 things, and I want to say I'm not sure, because I'm actually not. I don't believe this phrasing has come out before. I don't believe that we've actually had this exact phrasing of moving a card from your trigger zone into the damage zone. So any Angel Phantom main / people who've been to self-help therapy, please let me know in the comment section below if this is true. I wish to seek your help. But what does this actually mean? This means that you still perform the damage check, but you don't take the damage because Crimson will take the fall for you. But it's already a fall because his effect triggers from the drop zone. So it's a self-circulating thing. It's quite amazing, to be honest, how they really made such a card. I was hoping Crimson would be in V-Call. I got really crappy cards for Eradicators, but hey, okay. But yeah, this is really nice to see it directly following up. It is a good year to be a Narukami player, good year for Dungaree fans, good year for Kaisers. Long live the Kaisers. Of course, we play Hugats because, do I need to explain this? I feel I don't. I'll move on. Our grade 2 lineup is also very simplistic. The deck is going to fly by, really. We play 1 Thunderstorm Dragoon, just to fill up the ratio. We play 4 Spark Arrow Dragon, 4 copies, Dragonic Death Slider. You notice we cut down on the number of Thunderstorm Dragoon, because Thunderstorm Dragoon is just a glorified 14k beater so long as your opponent has no open front row circle. You may be saying, doesn't Narukami have better options than that? They do, just not for Kaisers. It's name locked to Vanquisher, Eradicator, or Dungaree, so good luck with that. So that's why we're left with that. And it's the same logic with this guy, really. Dragonic Death Scythe, Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards when placed in the same column as him, and then you bind him. And then this unit gains an additional 3000 power for the turn. And continuous skill, as long as the circle opposite this fella is empty, he gains an additional 5000 power. So basically, he's just another version of Thunderstorm Dragoon. They're all just 14k beaters. The highest, actually, for a generic grade 2 Narukami, because you have the 12k beaters like Recklessness as well as Bolt Pipe, and then you just have 9k attackers, which is everyone else. So this is really the best middle ground, that you still get your shield, so you're not playing a vanilla, but at the same time you also still get the ability to go on the offensive. 9 plus 5 being 14 helps you chip over even a grade 3 force. So it is nice to keep in mind that this thing does exist. So for these 5 cards in general, really that's the main mentality. I'm pretty sure I stated that in my previous video, but I just feel it's good to reiterate it after a year of just gurgit ha 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 ha. So yeah. And then moving on, obviously I have Spark Arrow. Spark Arrow is a revolutionary piece of Kaiser support that has completely changed the history of Kaiser since 2012. I'm not lying. Why? Here's the skill. Soul Blast 1, retire this unit if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater Kaiser, including Crimson, by the way. You can search your deck for a grade 3 or greater Kaiser and superior ride it. And then afterwards, you give the Kaiser that you've just wrote the ability that when this unit's attack hits an opponent's rear guard, instead of retiring it, it is bound. It marries literally the biggest problem Kaisers have had since G, which is that they keep just attacking into units and they die, but they're not bound, so they don't contribute for Thunderstrike. This solves that instantly, because now your targets that are being attacked are now also going to be retired. And it also helps you accelerate, more Kaisers in the soul. It helps you actually find your Bloods. We play a whopping 12 different Kaisers, but only 4 of them are actually valuable targets. You see what Crimson does, you see what Vermilion does. Do you really want to spend a turn on them? I guarantee you the answer is no. So this is actually the one way you actually make sure that everyone is still a valued member of the Kaiser hierarchy. And this guy solves the entire problem. He doesn't do anything else besides that. You can basically treat him like your, Vert Anaconda. I don't really know what's a good way to put it in a metaphor, that this is just a card to just facilitate and cycle through a phase of life for you. It doesn't really exactly win you a game in terms of its raw sheer power. It's just helping you speed through certain pieces, turning certain garnets into stuff that works. Whatever it is that explanation you take, good card is good card, so please accept it. And if you don't like this card, just don't play Kaisers. I'm not kidding. Our grade 1 lineup, it gets even easier, I wish, but actually there's a bit of a discrepancy, a bit of a nuance here, so I'd like to take a bit more time to delve into it. I promise I will not take too long. 4 copies of Mighty Bolt Dragoon, 4 copies of Thunder Ferret Dragon, and then 4 copies of Rising Phoenix. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. That's all we are playing for grade 1s. Let's break it down. Mighty Bolt, grade 3 Searcher. His skill is that unit is bound this turn, he gains 5000 power on the regular circle, and that VOR when placed, open the top 5 cards of your deck, add a grade 3 from among them to your hand, and then blah blah blah. I've done a video on grade 3 searches before, very very long time ago. Mighty Bolt was the first one. This is not my original copy, they are in one of my other 6 Narukami decks. So I just had to use a reprint, but yeah, you pretty much get the idea, it's the same card. Man, I wish I bought more Black Guy, but he was so expensive back then. And then moving on, I'll cover this one first, it's a bit easier. It is Thunder Variant. Thunder Variant, when placed on the Vanguard or regular circle, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, search them for a Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion base form, which is my boy, or the previously mentioned Spark Arrow. So that's how you manage your consistency for them, and you actually can make sure that you can actually ride up in a very queer, very sad, very forced way. But it still works. It still works. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but you do have to discard a card if you manage to search one of these targets off successfully. So it's not that bad. It's a fair one for one searcher. But when your Vanguard with the name Kaiser attack hits a unit successfully, he gains an additional 5000 power. So basically this is your crown holder in V series. So yeah, I cannot complain about it. He gets really big, really fast, really small, really fast. How you use it is really up to the situation at hand. But you may be wondering, how many times do I get to hit a target? How many times do I fail? And that's why I'm playing Rising Phoenix in this last slot. Rising Phoenix, when a unit is bound, use Superior Con from the drop zone, and he gains an additional 3000 power. Very simple card, is a nice recursion from the drop zone. That's really there is all to it. But I know what some of you may be saying. Where is Demolition Dragon? Demolition Dragon, ever since, for a while now, has been a really huge hot favorite for Narukami. A lot of people really just like the on-hit draw. Even for decks that don't use them that well, like Dungri, they just force, squeeze, and destroy their deck slots until they can just put him inside. And they do it for Kaisers too, but for a supposedly good reason. The good reason they claim is that it turns all your Kaiser attack hits into draws, which means if they manage to hit options in the front row, they get to draw 2 to 3 cards. It becomes Pot of Greed, and by God's miraculous grace on earth, they win the game via the 2 cards they drew. This is completely untrue, because if you've seen anything in this V meta, the 2 to 3 cards you draw, even if you successfully manage to hit, will not win. That's not how Luart works, that's not how Gurgate works, that's not how Prism works. At the recording of this video, the September 2022 V Series ban list has not come out. So please do not go back and try and say, oh, you were wrong. I'm wrong. I'm as of your time, I'm right as of my time. That's not how they work. And even if they call a front row is the best part, because there's chances that they just don't call a front row and then they just beat you down from that, like stuff like Dragonic Overlord across. Yes, I'm using that as my example. Or even better, Mangatsu Storm Reverse. It's an actual deck that has done really well in recent times, like the Bro and whatnot. It's basically pocket DOTX, they have no front row, but most decks can do that. You worry about 7Cs, bro? We literally just shit out a board out of virtually nowhere. And who cares if you drew 2? I'm gonna +6. So I really don't know where this mentality is coming from. It is a deadly on hit, but the amount of conditional factors you need to roll into this thing is not even funny. So I would not actually recommend you playing this unless the meta shifts, unless you actually have a meta where people are actually calling stuff earlier or more willing to take attacks earlier. Then I would say Demolition's much more worthwhile. I do enjoy Demolition in Kaisers, absolutely, but at this point in time, I find it very hard to reasonably tell people, yeah, you should be playing it, because realistically, it does not do what people imagine it does, which is sad. Perceived reality of good cards is bad, but the bad card is good. Last but not least, our grade zeros. We play obviously 8 crits, 4 draws, and my starter. The triggers for the heal was the heal guards, but if you can't buy the heal guards, honestly, you're totally cool. You can just play, regular heals. It doesn't matter. Now, the reason why we're playing 8 crits for draw instead of 12 crit, like I may have advocated in the past, is because at this point in time, you have less of a suicidal strategy. You actually now have more consistent ways to swing, beat, and kill. especially because of stuff like your Dragonic Kaiser Crimson. So now your strategy has moved from a one-time suicide attack to now being able to play more of an effective mid-range role, which is what Crimson tends to do. And yes, that is it for my Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion deck profile. I must admit that there were a lot of troubles testing this deck. Public opinion on this is still horrible, let alone my own opinion, but I still am totally in love with the Kaisers. I don't think I ever will actually fall out of unless I'm actually physically dead or mentally dead. This is just a deck that I really love since childhood and I continue to love. And I'm really glad that Kidani did not just shaft me completely by giving me, a super expensive PR or B, a totally crap PR, which it has done in the past and continues to do to this day. I understand that Dragonic Kaiser Crimson is not the cheapest PR on the market. There's actually a very high demand for this card in Japan for reasons I cannot explain, but maybe someone else can. It's about 500 yen on UUT. It's also pretty hard to find the stuff like Bakari and whatnot. So, or even your physical card stores if you try. Yeah, so I do actually say that it is pretty successful, at least from what I see from price wise. Maybe from in terms of player wise, it's not really that great because Kaisers aren't topping anytime soon. That's not a statement. That's kind of a fact. I've not seen them top or win anything so far. It's not like a hidden meta, and we still have a ban list. So there's a chance that something else comes out and then people just completely forget about Kaisers. It is possible. So what is the viability of this deck? Better than before. The answer is just the deck is now better than before, and that is the only answer that really matters, because as long as we're better than before, why can't we're still alive? Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.